welcome and good afternoon. Thank you all for attending today's webinar, Internet Connectivity is More Than Just Web Surfing, How to Avoid Network Outages with PRTG. Here to present from Paessler is Director Channel Sales for US and Canada, Peter Campisi, Pre-Sales Engineer Americas, Greg Campion, and from Winncom Technologies, Network Engineer Joe Driskell. If anyone has any questions throughout the presentation, please feel free to add them into the chat and they will be addressed. Pete, you're up.
Excellent. So just a little housekeeping. Thank you everyone for joining and welcome to this webinar. Just want to give a few housekeeping reminders here. This session is being recorded and the recording will be sent out via email later on after the webinar. Due to the size of the audience, it might be difficult to answer all questions during the presentation. We will have a slot dedicated to some Q&A. So please know that we'll do our best to answer your questions at that time. Anything that's left over afterwards, we'll do our best to follow up with an email to address your questions. So thank you for understanding. So as mentioned, speakers today, I'm Peter Campisi, Channel Director, US and Canada. With me, I have Greg Campion. He's our Senior Pre-Sales Engineer and Developer. And also joining us is Joe Driskell of Winncom. He's a network engineer over there. So just to show you some topics we're going to cover during today's webinar, introduction of Paessler, why monitoring, what is PRTG. We're going to show a demo of PRTG, and also Joe's going to discuss some services that Winncom can do regarding PRTG, and we're going to follow up Q&A towards the end there. So again, if you have any questions regarding any of those segments, if you can hold off and we'll address those at that moment. So quick introduction to Paessler, who we are as a company. Some quick facts. So we're not new. We've been around since 1997 and we were founded in Germany by Dirk Paessler. We're a relatively good sized company. We have, spanning the globe, 400 employees from over 40 countries, multiple customers all over the world. We're recognized in the Fortune 200. And more excitingly is we have more than 500,000 users that rely on PRTG every day. Our largest market is the US, followed by Germany, UK, and Benelux. And APAC is a growth market for us as well. We are the leader in IT, OT, and IoT monitoring. As I mentioned, we have over 500,000 users of PRTG in all varieties, our PRTG Network Monitor, Hosted, and Enterprise. We are highly regarded amongst our users. We're rated really high by various customer review sites. And we've been getting raving reviews for years and listening to our customer feedback on things that we can do better, things that they love, things that we can tweak a little bit better to make your experience the best possible when using PRTG. So let's discuss why is monitoring important. So why do we need monitoring? If you have an IT environment, you need the monitoring tool to be able to measure the parameters and thresholds for, let's say, the CPU of your servers. After you can measure them, you want to be able to inform and alert of any outages in numerous ways, right? Take advantage of another level. The monitoring tool should be able to analyze and optimize your infrastructure to look for any bottlenecks. You want to be able to resolve those bottlenecks as soon as possible, right? To make sure that you, your colleagues, and your customers have the best experience possible. Some of the biggest challenges, avoiding outages, right? Maintaining a fast reaction time when they occur. So know about your outages before your users, right? You want to be able to know when you think a potential outage may be coming or a disruption of service. Make sure those notifications go to the right team so they can address them. Have a preventative approach. As mentioned, know when they're about to happen. If there's a slowdown somewhere, you or your team can be alerted. And making sure that you're ensuring uptime of all systems, applications, and backup systems. The modern infrastructure consists of devices and systems from many different vendors, and often each comes with its own proprietary tool for getting monitoring data from it. Typically those tools are only to be used on those particular products. This results in a lack of a central view. There's multiple protocols and standards to use, and some which are not compatible with one another. So your network, you need to prevent outages, be alerted about failures, optimize your networks, and improve all of your services to your company and your customers. At the end of the day, it will check each one of those boxes. It's going to save you money, save you time, and most importantly, keep away those gray hairs and save your nerves. So you heard me mention PRTG. What is it? So as mentioned, a lot of companies out there, vendors, have all their different products and they focus on theirs, right? They want to make sure that their particular products are running well and there's no potential outages coming. You need to stay on top of it all. You're looking at all these different dashboards. It's a fast changing IT world. You have to be able to monitor every aspect of your IT infrastructure. Now, PRTG is a solution for everything, all your monitoring needs. You'll have one solution to monitor your entire IT infrastructure. We're talking about hardware, applications, virtual environments. One that allows you to stop juggling multiple monitors, multiple consoles from multiple vendors that are all fragmented, going to different users who are responsible for those, and hopefully wrap it up all into one. PRTG's features is a one solution to monitor everything: hardware, bandwidth, applications, cloud, virtual environments, IoT. Basically, if it has an IP address, we can monitor it. And I'm mentioning vendors, large vendors like Cisco, VMware, Microsoft, Oracle, Dell. The list goes on. And also across all kinds of industries, right? Manufacturing, government, healthcare. We can do it all. So monitoring your entire IT structure, check. Flexible alerting, check. Distributed monitoring using remote probes, we can do it. High availability, right? So if you're transitioning over to another machine, VM, you have to have some type of failover. Data publishing, making sure that there's active dashboards that you can see and use and wrap it up into a nice visual spot. And something that's quick and easy to use, right? If there's multiple tools out there, it's hard to learn about each and every one. Something that's going to do auto discovery and show all your devices and applications in one. Here's a nice slide of basically all you can monitor with PRTG across all different types of services and devices. Firewall, applications, bandwidth, VoIP, CCTV cameras, remote monitoring. These are all use cases that PRTG can monitor and provide you full visibility. PRTG, we have 3 different offerings. So PRTG Network Monitor, it's an on-prem solution, subscription-based, monitor all your IT, OT, and industrial IT products. It's effective in all environments. We have customers of all shapes and sizes and industries that use that product. Enterprise, it's a very large, scalable environments that PRTG Enterprise can be used on. Also an on-prem solution, annual subscription. You can install it on numerous machines, and we have a lot of enterprise features that take PRTG Network Monitor, which is an already robust solution, to scale it for enterprise use. Last but not least, PRTG Hosted Monitor. We will host it. It's cloud-based, multiple subscription options, monthly, annual, and multi-year. It's actually a pretty favorite of MSPs and in the SMB space as well. You'll notice there's a QR code in the lower right. If you can whip out your phones and you want to scan that, that'll bring you to our webpage. You can download a trial of either option to test out. Now, I spoke a lot about what PRTG is, what we can do. At this moment, I want to go ahead and hand it over to Greg Campion, and he's going to give you a walkthrough of what PRTG actually looks like, what it's capable of, and yeah.
Thanks so much, Pete.
You got it.
PRTG works in basically the fashion that it's got a core server and then it's got probes. So when we talk about PRTG, we're talking about it's actually agentless. It's a monitoring solution that where you don't have to install things on every single unit or device or whatever that you want to monitor. What happens is the PRTG core server is where you're going to set up the configuration for what you want to monitor on each device, and then the probe is actually going to go out there, use credentials or other methods and protocols to query the devices, get the data, and then send it back to the core. The core is going to display that data, it's going to analyze that data, it's going to aggregate that data, but that's the basic setup for a PRTG server. Pete mentioned earlier, we got remote probes. That's what we're talking about here, these probes. So if you have a distributed network, you have remote sites, you have places that aren't reachable from a core server like this, or you just want to put your core server somewhere behind like a DMZ. You can use the PRTG probes to get the information from the devices that are in those areas, as long as there's a port available and a TLS connection available from the probe back to the core server. So that's enough for now about the architecture. I'm going to show you what PRTG looks like. So as you can see here, the way that PRTG is set up is we have a root group, and then we have what we call the device tree. The device tree is going to be what we're talking about here. And again, you're going to see how we have different probes that are going to be monitoring different things. And so, for example, here, this is the local probe that's going to be installed alongside the actual core itself. When I'm talking about all this stuff being installed too, I should mention, these are Windows services that run on a Windows box. PRTG comes with its own proprietary database, so you don't have to install anything additionally like a SQL server or anything else like that. We take care of it for you. You can literally have this thing installed and monitoring your network within 5 minutes. So here, my headphones just muted me for some reason. Sorry, can everybody still hear me correctly?
I can hear you. Yes, sir.
Okay, good, because my headphones are going crazy all of a sudden. Anyway, so here we can see the different probes monitoring different things. So the way that it's set up is basically you install the probe service on another machine. Once that's installed, you point it at the core server. It's going to connect, and then yes.
I apologize, but you're off screen. Your view is off screen.
Oh, I'm just now seeing that. Wow.
Sorry, thank you.
No, thank you for saying something, because that would have made the presentation terrible. Does that look better?
Yes, you're good.
Yep, they're centered.
Awesome. I didn't realize that could happen. Okay. Right, so here are the remote probes. Here are the probes themselves. And underneath the probes, what we have set up are, we have different groups. And underneath the groups, we have different devices. So as we take a look here, we have our network group. We have a few different devices here. We have switches, we have firewalls, we have routers, we have access points. All these things can be monitored. Pretty much any vendor can be monitored, as long as it supports some kind of monitoring protocol, which most of them do. Generally speaking, it's going to be SNMP, your simple network monitoring protocol. Sometimes it's going to be a REST API. Doesn't really matter. We can monitor it. As Pete mentioned earlier, if you have something that has an IP address, generally speaking, we can read data from it in some way, shape, or fashion. If we take a look at just one of the firewalls that we have here, you can see some of the things that are available on kind of a standard firewall setup. So we're talking about ping, the SNMP uptime, how much traffic is going over specific ports. We're checking the SSL certificate validity. ICMP messages, UDP datagrams. So you can really break down the traffic depending on what you want to monitor. A lot of this stuff is going through SNMP. Some of this stuff's coming in through the REST API. So it just depends on how how you can communicate with the device, and you can set up a sensor for that. What a sensor really looks like, and I should get to this as well, because our licensing goes by sensors. So as you can tell, like on a standard firewall, it's going to be between 10 and 20 sensors that you're going to need to be able to get the visibility you want on a device like that. If you want to go crazy and you got a switch, a stack switch that has 500 interfaces, and you want to monitor every single one of them, that's also going to be going to basically be paying for however many sensors you set up on that device. So if you want to just monitor ping on a device, that's fine. If you want to monitor everything on the device, that's also fine. We don't license based on users. We don't license based on devices. We license basically purely on how many metrics you want to have collected. And when I talk about metrics and sensors are slightly different. As you can see here, this is a single sensor that has 6 different metrics in it. So it's going to tell you 6 different things about a device through metrics, and it's basically going to show you one aspect of a device. So when we're talking about like a CPU sensor, then it's generally speaking, it's going to tell you about all the CPUs on a machine. If we're talking about a sensor for a VM, for VMware, for example, that's a single sensor because a VM is one aspect of that device. So we tried to make sensors as logical as possible. We generally speaking, call them, the monitor aspects of a device. The best way to really get an understanding and a feel for how many sensors you're going to need or how many you want to use is to get that trial that Pete was talking about, get it up and running, start monitoring some of your devices, and just see how many sensors do you really need. Obviously, when we create sensors through what we call our auto discovery, so you can tell PRTG to go out on your network, find every device it can, and start setting up sensors. It's going to create a bunch of sensors on there, as much as we can, because we want to show you what's possible with it. If you decide that certain things aren't important to you, that you don't need to monitor them constantly, or maybe you're monitoring them through something else, you can just delete those sensors. And then once you have a device set up, you can also create what we call device templates. And the device templates are going to allow you to basically create a template of the different types of sensors that you want to create on other devices. When you add those devices into PRTG, you're going to be able to say, apply that template, and it's going to create those types of sensors on that device. So if you only set up sensors for traffic, SNMP traffic on specific interfaces, and you want to take that and put it onto the next device that you have set up, or that you need to set up, you can do that through device templates. What the traffic ports generally look like is this. So you're going to be able to get a lot of different detail out of a specific port. This is going to tell you, not just like your traffic in and out, but also your broadcasts, also your errors, your discards. So, going back to what Pete was talking about earlier, when you're providing internet to people, you want to be able to make sure that the lines are good, that the interfaces are working properly. You can collect those kind of statistics with PRTG directly on every single port that you need. Beyond just being able to do standard, how much traffic is going in or out, you can also use NetFlow sensors. So again, if you have a device, you have a NetFlow sensor, that's a single sensor. So a single sensor here is providing you with 10, 15 different metrics. And you're gonna be able to break down that traffic that's going over that device using standard NetFlow, and also get things like the top talkers, the top connections, top protocols, and so on. We're gonna save that data for up to 30 days, and you're gonna be able to go back and review it if you need to. If you see a huge spike in data for a specific period of time, you wanna see who was talking to who was sending out that information, who is possibly, totally blasting a line for whatever reason. The NetFlow sensors can totally help, and they don't cost any extra. There's no extra module like with other monitoring solutions. It comes packaged in with PRTG. Above and beyond being able to do network stuff and general, computing, I mean, we go way above and beyond that as well. We have a lot of different sensors that will work with environmental devices. We have a lot of different sensors that will speak different protocols like OPC-UA, MQTT, and Modbus as well. And as you can see here, once the screen loads, we support a lot of different vendors. And again, it just depends on what the vendor speaks, but generally speaking, if we take a look at the sensors that we have 313 now. A few weeks ago, that was about 305, but now we have 313 different types of sensors. You can see the different types of technologies that we can use, the different protocols that we can use. This isn't even all of them that exist. So like I said, MQTT is also one of them that's not listed here yet. There's a lot of different things, a lot of different ways to monitor with PRTG. And something like a Kentix multi-sensor that you want to have, sitting in a rack or in a data center or something like that, you're going to be able to pull out data for temperature, for leakage, for humidity, all that kind of stuff. And all this stuff is, either through REST API, through SNMP, through MQTT. It doesn't really matter what you're trying to monitor, we generally can. And for those things that maybe we don't have a sensor for, if you have something like that, we also provide an API where you can run your own sensors. So you could write a bash script, you could write a PowerShell script, a Python script, it doesn't really matter. And as long as that script returns either XML or JSON in this format, PRTG will read that out of standard out and put it into a sensor. So just like any other sensor that you're seeing here, if we take a look at just, for example, the HTTPS sensor, whatever you output from that sensor, and it can be up to 50 channels in a single sensor, whatever you output, PRTG is going to read that, it's going to graph that, it's going to show that over time. It's, if the script doesn't run or if you have an error, you can also put exit codes out so that it'll go into an error status, which brings me to the next thing. If you do have sensors that go into an error status, you can set up notification triggers. And notification triggers are going to allow you to, based on either state, threshold, speed, kind of whatever condition you feel like defining, you're going to be able to define a notification trigger for that. So if something, for example, is down for a certain amount of time, you can do a notification. If it's down for longer, you can repeat. And if it comes back up, you can do a different notification. So that's a great mechanism for opening tickets in a ticketing system or escalating from one team to the next team. And you can also set up many different triggers. So you're not limited to a single trigger. You could set up as many triggers essentially as you want. You can also inherit triggers from parent objects. So if you have a team that's responsible for all of your VMware stuff or all of your BGP or whatever, you can set up triggers that are going to then first go to like a certain team, then go to the next team and escalate from there. And the notifications themselves, you're going to be able to do a lot of different things with. So we have what we call notification templates. And then with the notification templates, what you can do is you can apply these templates through the triggers. And with these templates, you can send emails, you can add entries to the event log, so the Windows event log. You can send out SMSs. You can also execute HTTP, so REST API calls and things like that. You can, again, execute scripts. So anything that you can do with the script, you can do with PRTG as a trigger, as a notification. You can also send out syslogs, SNMP traps. We support Amazon SNS out of the box. We have a ticketing system also built into PRTG. So if something does go down, you can create a ticket, you can assign it to somebody. Once they have it, they can take that and do the work that they need to do, remediate the problem, document that in that ticket, close the ticket, and the next time something pops up, you're going to have that documented directly in PRTG. And we can send out push notifications to both the native iOS and Android apps that we have for PRTG. So if something does go down, you're on the move, you're going to get a pop-up or a push notification on your phone. You click on that push notification, it's going to take you straight to the app, which is going to show you the sensor where you can either acknowledge it, you could escalate it, you could create a ticket for it. You can do all that stuff in the native apps. We do support Teams and Slack as well. So if you don't want to do the push notifications, you can also route those things through webhooks with Teams and Slack. And then for more industrial uses, we also have MQTT and OPC-UA notifications as well. Going to dashboarding. So once you have that data in PRTG, you can also build really neat dashboards and maps. So this is kind of a floor plan for data center, so you can see the different racks of the different things. These sensors, these green boxes are going to be made up of different sensors. You can also see here we have nice starbursts here where we're going to be able to see, or sunbursts I think they're called, the different devices and what state they're in. So if something is down or in a warning state and you don't, that's a problem, you can click on this, go straight to the device within PRTG. So the way that the map designer works is you have basically a blank canvas, an HTML page. You can grab things out of the device tree, you drop them into here, then you grab a widget out of the different properties that we have on the right, you drop that on top of it, and then you're going to have a graph, or you're going to have a light, or you're going to have whatever there's a ton of different widgets in there. The starburst, sunbursts, all those kinds of things, summarizations. So you can build some pretty neat maps with it. This is, just again, an example of like a data center, or for example, a specific rack with like each one, each device that's racked there and its rolled up status as, green, red, or whatever, or yellow. You can also do things like this, where you could have just overall status of devices and how they're linked together and whether those things are up or down. You can drop in geographical maps. You can also, I think, like these are custom graphics that you can just drop in as like JPEGs or PNGs. You can also put in your own custom HTML and things like that too. And to close it out, there's a few cool things that are on the horizon for anybody who's here who is working with PRTG already. We have the multi-platform probe now that is out of beta, and basically that's a probe. So going back to those probes that I was talking about at the beginning, it's a probe that you could run on a router or a switch. It's containerized. It can run on Unix. It can run on Linux. It can run on ARM architectures. It can run on a Raspberry Pi. It's been cross-compiled to run on just about everything. So you can see here, Windows, Linux, and Docker for just as examples. And what they do is you connect these multi-platform probes to PRTG through what's called a NAT server. That's going to take it's going to offload all that SSL connection load that was originally on the core server onto the NAT server. And as a result, the multi-platform probe can scale even higher than the old probe, which is great. So if you are, dealing with a situation where you have a lot of different nodes that you have to monitor that are separate from one another, and you want to put a probe at every single one of them, and you have something that will run, some kind of Linux binary or a container, you can just drop that multi-platform probe directly on there and almost use it like an agent if you need to. So that's a really great thing that's coming out. That's out, and we're slowly making it better and better, adding more and more sensors for it. It doesn't support all 313 sensors that the old probe does, but we're getting there. And there's also the new UI for PRTG. So we were looking at the old UI. This is the new UI. This UI is a single page application that runs in your browser. It's going to be querying the API that I'll talk about in a second. And it's much faster. It's much snappier. It's responsive. It has really neat graphics on it and things like that. The graphs are much better than they used to be. There's lots of really cool things about this, and the split view of just being able to look here and not go between pages, where you can just take a look at your firewall and click it over here in the device tree and see it directly over here, which is really convenient. This whole thing, like I said, is powered by a new API. This is the API v2. This is a fully RESTful API that is a separate module or separate service that runs outside of the core and the probe. So you're able to query more frequently through this API than you were through the old one. And it's also got caching built into it, so that if you are making calls that may be a bit expensive, but it's just redundant, the cache will take over and make it more efficient. And the last thing I'll talk about now is the last extension that we are coming out with, which is the PRTG Data Hub. The Data Hub is a way to ingest different logs and SNMP traps from different devices and then forward them onto multiple solutions. So a lot of times you have the problem, even with PRTG, where if you have a syslog sensor set up and you want to grab those syslogs from the device, you can set up in the device which ports are supposed to get or which devices are supposed to get those syslogs on the other end. But if you need to specify multiple locations, it becomes a problem. And if you need to store those syslogs or store those SNMP traps somewhere else, and you also need to notify on them, the idea behind the Data Hub is that you can split those things and send them onto multiple locations. And then what also is possible is to create what's called a state destination, so that if something sends a trap saying, hey, this door is open, you can put a device into an error state, and then when the door gets closed, put it back into a non-error state. And that's based on syslogs and SNMP traps. That's about it from me. I think at this point, I will hand it back over to Pete.
Excellent. Thank you for all that, Greg. And again, anyone, we will be sending it over to Joe over at Winncom. Let me just hang tight.
Good afternoon, y'all. Can y'all hear me?
Yes.
I can hear you.
Awesome. Good deal. Hey, so my name is Joe Driskell. I'm a network and infrastructure engineer over here at Winncom. Just give you want to kind of give you a quick rundown. This is a lot of information to take in, and this platform is very capable. Some of y'all may be familiar with it or other monitoring and management platforms. Just want to let you guys and girls know that we're here to help, and not just the installation part of this. If you already have PRTG, or or if you just need help standing it up, or after you think you can handle getting it stood up, and you need help, integrating it with equipment, with radios, with UPSs, with rectifiers, generators, routers, firewall switches. We're here to help. We have a very experienced team, not only with this platform, but with all kinds of infrastructure. So a lot of us have been in critical networks and ISP management, operator management for many years. So we have a full dedicated engineering staff on tap to help you all be successful, right? So this platform is, again, it's obviously very capable. And we barely even touched the tip of the iceberg with this presentation. That was very high level and it's very informative. But when it comes down to it, you're really going to want to get down into the nitty gritty of what this can and can't do and how it fits your bill, right? As a provider, or sometimes I know in this space, your customers reach out to you because you're a technical, you may not be tech savvy, and they want help with their network. Being able to see how this fits in all kinds of realms, reach out to us. We're my email for our engineering team. Make sure that somebody gets in touch with you ASAP. That's engineering@winncom.com. Reach out to us. We'll get a full demo in place here with the team at Paessler, and make sure that you're successful, because when you're successful, we're successful, right? And we obviously want maximum amount of uptime for you as a provider, and of course for your customers. So again, feel free to reach out at any time. Engineering@winncom.com. We're more than capable and more than happy to help y'all.
Excellent. Thank you, Joe. And I just want to reiterate that Winncom has been a long partner of Paessler and PRTG. They're extremely savvy with our product and have the technical staff on hand to tackle many things. So thank you. Next, I want to just kick it over to the Q&A session. Just I know I covered some topics at a very high level. Greg went into the a demo of PRTG showing some of the capabilities. Joe just kind of rehashed some of the services and so forth that they can do around PRTG. So I wanted you to just take this moment and go to the chat option and go to webinar. Let us know if you have any questions that you have at the top of your head or that you would like us to answer. Again, you have a pretty broad group. You have a sales guy, you have an engineer, then you have a Winncom technician on the line with you right now. So feel free to ask some questions in the chat, and we're gonna pause and give you just a few moments to gather those thoughts and questions, and we'll tackle them as they come in. Greg, I have a question about the PRTG architecture.
Yeah, go for it.
Would you be able to pull something up regarding that and show what it looks like, please?
Yeah, no problem. Give me 1 second. I will change the presenter to myself, and is it showing? Nope. Oh.
Right, showing your desktop.
Yeah, all right, we'll just go here then. There you go. Yeah, so I mean, again, going back to the architecture, one core server can handle up to about 10 to 15,000 sensors. That is generally speaking around, so we estimate that it's about 10 to 15 sensors per device, like I mentioned earlier. So if you're running 10,000 sensors, it's about 1,000 devices on a single core. Typically speaking, we try to tell people to distribute the load over multiple probes for the actual sensors themselves. And if you want to go beyond that, what you have to do is start running more core servers, and that's where we get into different licensing. And so the PP, you mentioned the different licenses earlier. With the PRTG hosted, we host this portion for you. So you have a core server and a hosted probe, and then you can add your own probes internal to your network. With the enterprise monitor, you can run many core servers and be able to monitor more than 10,000 sensors. And with the normal network monitor, this is pretty much the standard architecture. So you're going to have the core server, the local probe that's installed with that, and then any additional probes that connect back to that. But in both the enterprise and the network monitor, you're responsible for hosting the actual core servers yourself.
Perfect. Thanks, Greg.
No problem. I think that takes care of our questions, unless you wanted to talk briefly about the different packages that we have for like the network monitor and the enterprise monitor, where that stuff starts, Pete.
Let me get it back to my screen real quick. Yeah, Greg, I think you have to kick it over to me, please.
All right, do you want to just show this screen?
Yes.
Cool.
Thank you very much. So, as Greg mentioned, PRTG is licensed by sensors. The pricing that we're showing right now is PRTG Network Monitor. Again, it's an on-prem monitoring solution. It's sold in packets of sensors, essentially, and again, mileage may vary. We typically, on licensing size, we say that any device needs anywhere between 8 to 12 sensors per device. Obviously, a printer may use less sensors versus a high-end server with multiple blades, etc. So it's a 0 to 500 sensors is essentially what we'd say the PRTG 500. And that basically gets you essentially what Greg mentioned, where the architecture is you'll get one installed core server. However, it gets to the use of multiple remote probes that will feed into the core server. And the next license goes anywhere between 500 to 10,000 sensors. Again, that's up to 10,000 sensors. And then we'll just look at enterprise real quick. So it's our most scalable version of PRTG. Now, PRTG Enterprise starts at around 20,000 sensors. However, as you saw on the other screen, the price point between PRTG Enterprise and PRTG Network Monitor for 10,000 sensors are right around the similar price point. With Enterprise, you get a few extra tools that give you the ability to look at SLAs, data exporter, and so forth. Also, the flexibility to, if you're a company that has multiple sites worldwide, nationwide, or within maybe your school where there's multiple school districts, PRTG Enterprise has the ability to utilize multiple core servers, essentially multiple installed instances of PRTG, or even if you're using PRTG in an airtight environment, it's very flexible there, giving the ability to have up to 20,000 sensors and well and beyond. Essentially, we like to say it's unlimited, but that's the starting price per year in a subscription license.
We got one more question that popped up in. Actually, do you want me to show? Sorry, do you want me to show the hosted as well? I'll just show it really briefly, just so
absolutely. So PRTG hosted is hosted in AWS. It's either on a monthly or annual pricing model. As you can see, it's very similarly priced as PRTG Network Monitor. you basically just start a trial PRTG hosted, and if you made a purchase, you just basically click through and go, and everything's up and running. Advantages are you can just use a dashboard to log into everything and view your environment. It's structured for licensing more of the same. So 500 sensors up to 10,000 for hosted. Or again, if you have your own private cloud, you can always use on-prem in a hosted environment as well. So very flexible for, again, companies of all shapes and sizes and environments. And yes, I do see so the question is, are MIB required in this system?
Yeah. I mean, I was just going to talk briefly about that. At the end of the day, most things can be monitored out of the box with PRTG. There are, of course, exceptions because there are hundreds and thousands of different devices out there. And so in those cases, if we don't have a sensor for it out of the box, what you could do is use the MIB importer. The MIB importer can take those MIBs. You can select which values you want to monitor from those MIBs, import those into PRTG, and create sensors out of them. So they're not per se required, but there are going to be certain situations where you might need to use them to get more detailed monitoring than is available straight out of the box.
If you're curious afterwards and you have some questions, we do have a pretty extensive resource page at PRTG. These are all hyperlinks. Again, will be attached to the webinar slide that goes out. There's other additional webinars that dive into other topics, case studies, hardware requirements, other free tools that are provided, some e-learning, and one of the next ones is our Paessler PRTG roadmap. I have the hyperlink up there in the slide as well in case you want to go there. You know, what I have on here is just a small portion of what we have in the planned or exploration stage, but we continue to develop PRTG to give our current customers and future ones the best possible experience ever. Also, you know, if you go onto our website, we can also take requests where you can send things in, and we can upload it by other users that would like the same functionality. And we try to listen to our audience as much as possible. So again, if I go to the hyperlink, you can see the full unedited roadmap, kind of see what things we have planned, explored, or future things that are coming down the pike. And lastly, just want to say thank you everyone for attending today. Winncom, thank you very much for helping put this together for us. A big thank you from myself, Greg, and Joe over there at Winncom. Really appreciate you. Thank you. And again, if you have any questions or want to give a little bit of a deep dive, please reach out to Winncom, and we'll get together a personal catered demo for you to see how we can help prevent downtime. Thank you.